Hey everyone, so I've been using these concrete blocks as speaker stands since I got my Focal Trios. It's partially because they're cheap. This is like $20. And it's also partially because I've been planning on getting a pair of sound anchors since I got these, but they had like a 12-week lead time. So today in this video, I want to answer the question, do speaker stands matter? Is there a sonic difference between speaker stands and different options, or should you just go with the cheapest thing that you can buy? We're gonna get some testing equipment in here, some lasers, some measurement software, and we are going to measure the sonic differences between concrete blocks with the isoacoustics pucks, these Gator speaker stands that are about $140, and these sound anchors that are about $1,200. Now I've been curious about this for a long time. Is it actually worth spending money on good speaker stands? Because honestly, these have been doing a great job for like an entire year now. So I figured since I wanted to know, I would bring you guys along on this journey and we'll get to the bottom of it. But first, since all of these speaker stands need to be exactly the same height so that way we can measure the sonic differences between them, these are just an inch or two too tall, their minimum height. So I'm actually gonna have to chop these up. So let's go get that done and then we'll get to measuring. I almost fell over. All right, let's go. Okay, we've got these all cut down to size. The good news is that's actually gonna give these an advantage because not only are they structurally the same, they're arguably stronger because they're shorter, so that's less leverage the speaker has to bend them and make them wobble. There we go. Okay, now these are exactly the same height. So before we get to actually testing these, there are links down below to go check out these Gator stands, the sound anchors, and the concrete, those you would pick up at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. But there's links down below for both of these sets of speaker stands. Those links go to Sweetwater. Sweetwater is sponsoring this video. You can get anything you ever need from Sweetwater. And if you use any of the links on any of my videos to buy anything you ever need, it really helps the channel out. Helps me keep making videos just like this. Costs you nothing extra, so I really appreciate it. If you guys use those links anytime you need anything. I'm genuinely curious how this is gonna work out. Is there gonna be a sonic difference? Is there gonna be no difference? Are the concrete blocks actually gonna win? All right, let's get to testing. So we've got Josh here from Focal. Thank you for coming by. Yeah. He is helping me out with the technical details of this. So we've got a laser here, and this laser is helping us make sure that these speakers are in exactly the same spot, both in distance and in angle, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Because this is a special head, or a ball head, or what is this?
Yeah, there's a gentleman here in town who was telling me about this rig he had. So pretty much he took a Manfrotto 303. It's a 360 degree head and it's got 5-degree clicks. We can set up a very, very repeatable angle. This Leica laser tells us vertical angle as well. So we have our vertical pitch here. We have our repeatable horizontal angle here.
It also is distance simultaneously.
It's distance, yeah, and it'll do distance at the same time down to a hundredth of an inch.
Okay, so the idea here is we're going to use this to make sure that every time we swap out speakers and stands that they are in exactly the same spot, because if they're different positions at all, it would totally change how they sound in the room. That's the idea.
More or less, yeah.
We'll see if we can get there with it. Okay, so we changed the distance on these. They are within 1/100th of a foot to the laser in the listening position. Okay, so this is taking a little longer than I thought at this point. And when I was just shooting the thumbnail, and these Gator stands were sketchy at best. They're rated for 100 watts. These are 100 watts. These are 100-watt speaker stands. So these speaker stands are rated for 100 pounds. I might be able to believe that if they were much, much smaller footprint of speakers, but it is sketchy at best putting those Focal Trio 11s on these. I think these are a really good bang for a buck. I think these would work great for some cheaper monitors or smaller monitors, but we are going to do this very, very quickly because I don't want my trios sitting on these any longer, not a minute longer than they have to be. So, how much these weigh?
82 pounds.
82 pounds! 82 pounds on a set of speaker stands that's supposed to hold 100. sketchy. Are we in the ballpark? How many? How much?
7/100ths of a.
Okay.
So I'd say an inch.
Try that. Oh my God, look at it wobble.
Yeah, dude, this is really sketchy.
This is really sketchy.
Don't do this.
Where we need to go? It's for science, people. It's all for science. I'm not about this. God, those are so sturdy. Nailed it. They do look good. They better look good. They are not inexpensive. Okay, so final test. We've got the Focal Trio 11s on the sound anchors with the ISO Acoustics pucks. And this is likely going to be the best sounding, but we're just gonna test everything and then we'll go over all the differences between them. Okay, so this was actually a really wild test and I'm super excited to share the results with you guys because it's not what we expected. But first, a little package from the YouTubes. In the pocket today, if you guys care, a forged carbon fiber Civivi Elementum. Pretty pumped. Little letter from YouTube. And the important part. Thank you guys, thank you. Thank you for this. That's cool, right? That's just cool. Can I just set it right here the rest of the video? Okay, speaker stands. Now I'm gonna do my best to explain this in a way that is simple enough that everyone's gonna get something out of this, but also technical and nerdy enough that the people who are interested in the actual details can get something out of this. We'll see how I do. Let me explain to you what these graphs mean. Now, the first one that we want to look at, any one of these, and this is frequency response here. So down here, this is 10 hertz, and it goes up to 100 hertz, 1K, 10K, and so on and so forth. Now, this is not how the human ear works. This is a really, really exaggerated version of what we would actually hear. However, it's the most accurate way to look at this and find the actual differences between these. So further up is louder, further down is quieter, and basically the idea in a perfect world is we would like this more or less flat. But what we really want to look at is the differences between these stands. This next chart that I'm going to show you is what they call a waterfall chart. Now what this is the same thing, 10 hertz up to, I mean, this one goes up to 24K basically, but low frequency up to high frequency. And this is time. So this 0 way back over here, this is the moment that the sound comes out the speakers. And then as we travel this way on this graph, this is how long it takes for the resonances in those frequencies to stop. Now in a perfect world, we want this to be very fast. The sound comes out the speaker and it's over instantly. We want this to happen very quickly. But as you can see down here in some of these low frequency areas, you can see that the room and the speaker stands or the speakers or whatever's happening is lasting longer than we would like it to happen. So the idea is we want everything to look like this and not to look like this. This is amplitude here, so this is how loud the signal is at a particular time. I hope that made sense, and I'm gonna put this all into layman's terms as we get through these graphs. Okay, first let's look at the concrete blocks with the ISO Acoustics pucks. You can see there's a giant dip right here somewhere around 180-ish, 190-ish. There's another huge dip here around 240 or something like that. And there's some peaks here. Okay, so these are the gator frameworks, less right here in these dips, and we're gonna get to overlaying these on top of each other. And then again, the sound anchors without the isoacoustics pucks, again, flatter and less problems. And then we get up to the sound anchors with the isoacoustics pucks. Yeah, and again, flatter with less problems. Now, if we start to overlay these on top of each other, this is gonna be the bricks with the isoacoustics pucks versus the gator frameworks. Yeah, so red is gonna be the bricks, the concrete blocks, and the purple is gonna be the gator frameworks. Now, the important things I think to take away from this is these dips right here, these giant nulls in the sound, they get better with the gator stands without the pucks. Now remember, we didn't use the pucks on the gator stands because we didn't think it was structurally a good idea to do so. But we can see that the gator stands, the cheap gator stands, are actually better in a lot of these areas than the bricks with the iso pucks. Now we didn't measure the bricks without the pucks because when I first put the bricks in my room, they were actually unusable. Like, couldn't listen to them, sounded horrible. Put the pucks on the bricks and they became usable, and that's what I used for a long time. But we can kind of see here how a lot of these peaks and dips in a lot of these places are more flattened out. It's just a little bit better and a little bit more flat with the gator stands than it is with the isoacoustics pucks on the bricks. So if we move to the next set, now this is the gator frameworks versus the sound anchors. The sound anchors are the teal line here, and the gator is the purple line. And so again, you can see here a significant improvement, especially in these big notches with the sound anchors over the gator stands. In this area, you can certainly see that there's, I mean, that's a big improvement. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dB difference in this notch in the right direction with the sound anchors versus the gator stands. Over here, you can see another like 2.5 dB difference over here. And this is in the upper mid range, somewhere about 6,400 hertz. That's a huge difference. So if we move then to the sound anchors without the isoacoustics pucks versus the sound anchors with the isoacoustics pucks, again, we just see more flattening. It's just less jagged, less peaks and valleys, and in some cases by quite a few dB. I mean, we're talking 2.5 or 3 dB in some of these spots that were sounding better with the pucks. Now that part wasn't the surprise to me. The surprise wasn't that the pucks helped, because I've experienced it. They definitely help, and now we have the data to back it up. What was really shocking to us, one was that in frequency response that the concrete blocks were the worst. We did not expect that because generally speaking, it's pretty widely accepted that concrete blocks are a great option, but that's not the case. Not only is it not the flattest frequency response, but also when we get into the waterfall chart here, this is where the surprises really started showing up for us. Now remember how to read these charts. So this is low frequency to high frequency, quiet to loud, and then time from the time it comes out the speakers to how long in the room it lasts. And again, the idea is we want everything to look close to this where there's no resonances. Now what's wild is this is the concrete blocks now. What's wild is you see this huge blade right here of 80 hertz, about 80 hertz, just ringing forever. Like, that's wild. And then you see a huge buildup down here in the like 10 to 40 hertz-ish range. This is a huge buildup. And so when we move over to the gator stands, that buildup goes away significantly. This 80 hertz resonance right here is significantly better on the gator stands than it was on the concrete blocks. And this area down here in the very low end, between like 10 and 50 hertz, is significantly better. We didn't expect that. We really expected the concrete blocks to outperform the gator stands, and they did not. Like at all. So then we move from the gator stands up to the sound anchors, and it's interesting. Now again, we're talking time-based response here, not frequency-based response. We already know that the sound anchors are flatter frequency than the gators, but for time resonances, how accurate they are in the time domain, there's some give and take, it looks like to me. Now I'm not an expert at reading these, but to me it looks like between the gator stands and the sound anchors, there are some things that get better with the sound anchors, and there are some things that get worse in the time domain. So that is also a little surprising that while the sound anchors, the expensive ones, are flatter frequency response in the time domain, they're not a super clear winner. Now the craziest difference in my opinion comes when we put the isoacoustics pucks on the sound anchors. So I want you to look at this area right down here. Let's start with this area. Now this is in the 10 to 50 hertz range, and we want this gone. We want as little of this as humanly possible. And so as soon as you put the isoacoustics pucks, it's just gone. Completely, that resonance is just completely gone. That is a wild result to me. Now comparing the sound anchors without the isoacoustics pucks to the sound anchors with the isoacoustics pucks, this 80-ish hertz range right here gets significantly better as well once you put the pucks on. And so that is a very interesting result. So we sat here looking over these results like really kind of puzzled because it's not the results that we expected. And then for whatever reason, I'm like, there's a screwdriver. I'm just gonna tap on stuff and see what these different stands sound like when I just tap on it all. This is what happened. Okay, so while we were trying to decipher why the concrete blocks were actually so much worse, I grabbed a screwdriver and we just, super scientifically, we just started tapping on stuff. So this is wild. Watch this. Okay, so let's start with that concrete block right there. Okay, now do the solid one. Lower and much faster decay. Now the frame works.
This is my hand on it as well, if I remove my hand. I'm assuming we're having weight on these, right?
Right. Okay. Now, I'm not cutting anything. The audio is exactly the same. I'm going to try to get the same distance. Okay. It's just... It's completely dead.
Yeah, I don't know how they do that. If they like, but it's maybe the powder coat.
Okay.
Cuts down on that.
But that's a wild difference because that's metal.
Yeah, it's metal, but it's almost like a...
There's no resonance there at all.
Yeah.
Now there are some other interesting results higher in the frequency range, but we're gonna start getting really, really nerdy if I just keep going. So generally speaking, the fascinating thing to me is that one, concrete blocks are unusable on their own. And two, even with some decoupling like the isoacoustics pucks, they're pretty bad. They're the worst option of all of these. So don't do what I did. Don't use concrete blocks, regardless of what anyone tells you. The next thing that was very surprising is that the gator stands, the cheapest stands that have a weight limit for these speakers, however sketchy it might be, actually performed really, really well given their price point. So I found that fascinating. Now, I would say that I do not trust their 100-pound weight limit. They're supposed to be rated for 100 pounds. My speakers weigh 80-something pounds. I would absolutely not leave those speakers on those stands. So keep that in mind. And then you move up to the sound anchors, which are the expensive stands. From a construction standpoint, I mean, you could set a small car on them and they would hold it. Like how heavy duty and sturdy they are cannot be overstated. They are shockingly sturdy and well made. So that's great. You would hope so for the money. Now in the time domain, as far as the resonances go, they weren't that much better than the gator stands, than the cheap stands. But in the frequency response range, they were significantly better. So you definitely took another step up when you went to the expensive stands. But the shocking part again for us was that once you put the pucks on the sound anchors, it is by far the best result, both on paper and sonically. We listened to all of these, and it is a shocking difference in this room. What these speakers sound like in this room now, on the sound anchors with the isoacoustics pucks versus what they sounded like on concrete blocks with the isoacoustics pucks is a shocking difference. And I should not have waited a year to do this. Regardless of what situation you're in or what budget you have or what your room looks like or what kind of speakers you have, I hope you got something out of this or it was at least entertaining to nerd out with us. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget links down below for everything, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.